Hey, Brett. How's it going?
All right. Yep. So this call comes in from Hustler Casino in LA.
So, is this 2-5-10 or is this 5-5?
It's 5-5.
All right. So you're playing the 5-5 300 to 1,000 game, and they play double board PLO bomb pots during dealer breaks here. That's pretty cool.
Yep. I love those.
All right. And what are the effective stacks here?
I just bought in, so 1,000.
All right. 1K effective. Okay. Start us off.
Yeah. So the folds around to the hijack. He opens it up to $20,
Okay.
and the cutoff calls.
Okay.
Hero is in the button with ace of hearts, ace of diamonds, and I three bet to 85.
So hero 3 bets, ace of hearts, ace of diamonds to 85. Okay.
And then the hijack folds and the cutoff calls.
All right. So the hijack folds was the initial opener. Cut off double flats.
Nice double flat.
We call that a double flat because he called the initial bet. And then he's called your 3-bet, which is usually at this level a fairly collapsed range. Not a strong range because normally a hand would 3-bet the hijack just, first in. So you pretty much love this spot. Another mistake that people make with double flats is they actually don't realize, and it could be subconsciously correct because people don't exploit this. If you double flat a hand and you flop top pair, a lot of times you're really supposed to go to the end with it because it's one of the best hands you're possibly ever going to have if you don't have overpairs. Now you can flop sets and stuff too, but in your spot, Brett, you can actually use that to your advantage because a lot of guys just don't want to go to felt with like king jack on a jack high board if you're bluffing them. I mean, so you could put a lot of pressure on double flatters.
Yeah, so like you said, I'm putting him on mostly like small pocket pairs and bigger suited connectors really. Definitely not a strong range. And then the flop. So the flop comes 10 of clubs, 8 of diamonds, and 6 of diamonds.
10 of clubs, 8 of diamonds, 6 of diamonds. Hero with aces with the ace of diamonds. 10, 8, 6. Now, there will be some guys that will call here with like 10s, 8s, and 6s too as double flats. You've also got 9s and 7s in there. Okay. He checks?
Yeah, he checks it to me, and I bet a third pot $70, and he makes the call.
Cutoff calls. Pot now is 340. Let's talk about your sizing here a little bit. I think I would still just actually bet larger here. Funny enough. I don't know if he's ever folding any piece of this board for 140 versus 70. Now, you do have aces with the ace of diamonds, which means he has less. Well, you can't have nut flush draw because you have it in your hand, but still, I just don't know what gets called for the smaller sizing that still doesn't get called here for the 140, whether that's 6-7 suited, 7-8 suited, jack 10, even like queen jack, pocket nines. I'm just thinking about this visually, thinking about the sack sizes. You bet 70, he calls. The pot's now 340. And now you guys have, 850 left. I think I like a larger sizing to try to actually get more money in the pot here too.
Yeah, I mean, if you think that smaller pairs like 9-7s with the diamond are calling, or you can get more value against those 10x's and flush draws for sure.
Okay.
We're going to the turn. So the pot is 340, and it is the 4 of diamonds. Flush comes in.
Okay. But you have the ace of diamonds.
But I do have the ace of diamonds. Yep.
Okay. So that doesn't, it changes the fact that the flush comes in, but hero has aces with the ace of diamonds. So that's going to cut out a fair, actually, I would say it cuts out a lot of the flushes in this exact configuration, which is a double flat, because I could see some guys double flatting ace-x suited, but you have it. So 10, 8, 6, 4 of diamonds. Okay, he checks again?
Yeah, he checks it over to me, and this is definitely my biggest mistake of the hand. I bet about 2/3. I go 230 here.
Yeah, it's hard for him to have a high diamond here. Not just because you have aces with the ace of diamonds, but unless he's really, really bad, which I suppose is possible, in order for him to have a naked high diamond here, it would have to be pair plus diamond, which is going to be like king 10 with the king of diamonds. Like queen jack off with the queen or jack of diamonds.
Definitely a little thin if I'm trying to get called by horse, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, and then most of the 10x variety that plays like this is 10x suited. So yeah, I think. Well, how much did you bet again? I'm sorry.
I bet 230. But do you think you would be on board with like a smaller, like another quarter pot bet, like around like 110?
I do.
I really wish I did something like that to get like smaller pairs with the diamond to call me trying to get a flush. And then if they have a flush already, hopefully they'll raise me. I can just get away from it, right?
I mean, here's the thing: like, if you bet like 100 or 120, like he still might be. He doesn't have to have a diamond to call you, right?
Yeah. So those top pairs are in there still.
Yeah. So you bet 230 into 340 on the 4 diamond.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he makes the call.
And he calls. Wow,
Yep.
that's interesting.
Definitely putting him on a strong range here once he makes the call. Not like I realize now, like not a lot much worse is calling me here for this big bet when the flush comes in.
I'll tell you what's also interesting here is that you know that it's a little bit of a sizing mistake if, let's say, for example, the river comes off and it's like a black deuce and he checks to you. If you're not comfortable actually even betting aces here at the end on the river, it's probably pretty close in this particular spot. Then probably the turn bet in itself is kind of a mistake because as we go through this, you're like, wait a minute, he's calling my 230. It's really, really hard for him to have just one high diamond in his hand that I'm ahead of if he's not calling with like king 10 off to a 3-bet. So if the river's like at the deuce of spades and he checks and I'm not comfortable putting money in now because of the turn call, then probably like the turn bet size is kind of a mistake if you follow me. 230 call, pot 4-6. So now it is 800.
Yep, $800 to the river, and it is a board pairing 8 of hearts.
So the 8 of hearts comes at the end. So it's 10 of clubs, 8 of diamonds, 6 of diamonds, 4 of diamonds, 8 of hearts. Okay.
And then Villain does something very interesting here. He donks out for 400.
So just one quick thing. John F. in the live chat says, could the villain have something like queen, queen, or jack, jack with a diamond? If it was a regular 3-bet pot, sure. But this is why it's so important to recognize sort of preflop configuration. I tend to doubt that he ever has those hands because it was a double flat, right? It went hijack 20, cut off call. Yeah, cut off call.
Never going through my head that he has a hand like that.
Yeah. So that's why the turn sizing, and we talk about that, is a little bit strange. Now, river's the 8 of hearts, cut off donks for 400. And you might say to yourself, well, what's the logical bluff? He missed the diamonds, right? Well, the problem here for the caller is that caller is the one who's got aces with keys and diamonds, right? So he can't have like the naked ace of diamonds here. So, I mean, he's betting half the size of the pot, which is not, and here's the other thing here too. It's not like this is a block bet where like king 10 of spades is setting his price. I just don't buy that. The king 10 of spades is like setting his price here for 400 into 800. Maybe if the bet was like anything under, say, like 250, maybe you could make that case. Now, with that being said, you do see some very strange things. And on paper, you would look at this like some more theoretical, from a more theoretical perspective, you look at this and you go, how could you possibly fold getting 3-1 with aces with the ace of diamonds here? But I think that we kind of talk through it and it's just like, I might fold here. I mean, usually we're always seeing like a response of like, oh, we bet, we get check raised all in. This guy just donks for 400. I don't know exactly what you beat here. When you hold aces with the ace of diamonds and this guy called that turn sizing.
Yeah.
It's pretty.
Alarm bells are going off when he donked out like this. Like I was going through them. My head's exactly like you said. Like top pair hands, they pretty much have no reason to go with this half pot size. Like if he had a flush or something, he's definitely not doing this because the board just paired. Like why would you do that? The only hand that like I was convinced he could have had was like some kind of set because that would make sense that he's not going to raise a set on the turn when the flush comes in.
Right, that he was still playing the flop and then he just didn't raise the turn, right? Because the flush came in.
That's like the only logical like value hand that you could really be doing this with. So he has a very narrow value range in my opinion.
What did this guy look like? Was he like older?
I just sat down, but he was like an Asian dude, and I come to realize after this hand, he's pretty gambly. Like he's definitely capable of calling me my 3-bet with like king 10 suited, queen 10 suited, hands like that.
Yeah, but the thing about that though is that like if he's pretty gambly, I almost think this is more of a fold because more gambly guys will call with those hands, but again, like they're not going to play king 10, queen 10 suited like this at the river like this. As someone pointed out in the live chat, he could have a hand like 9-8 off here too that you lose to. You know what I mean? Something like that. 9-8 with the 9 of diamonds. I'm just you can have a loose guy. This is where I think a lot of people think about live poker sometimes in the wrong way. They're like, oh, this guy's really loose. Like he's got a lot of hands. That's true. People can have a lot of hands, but that doesn't mean that they're going to take this line with a lot of hands or a large percentage of the hands that they have. Like I will very, very confidently say this is never just 10x. So if you take out 10x and you have the ace of diamonds, what are you left with here that's betting? That's a bluff.
Yeah, not much besides those offsuit hands.
You know, sevens. Because the other thing too is that like a gambly Asian guy, and they're a dime a dozen, right? I know them all in like LA. They're not going to turn a hand into a bluff either because they're going to think, well, I can get to showdown with like sevens, right? Again, because you might have ace king, right? And you just check behind. So why are they going to bet sevens here at the end, right? So I could see folding.
Yeah. Well, I have one question actually. On
Yeah.
the turn, had I gone like a quarter or smaller like I wanted to, and he just made the call, and then he made this same play on the river, getting to the river with like a weaker range, would you be more on board with the call?
Yes. If you had bet something like 75 or 100 and he called and then he donked this river, I would.
I would be a lot happier with the call if it.
Yeah. I mean, I think we talked about this. I mean, I think we talked about how even if the river was like a black deuce, you holding aces with the ace of diamonds, the turn side, if we can't put money in on the river because he called the turn sizing, now sometimes we can do that. Sometimes we can bet large on the turn on a very, very draw heavy board and then just check back rivers. We can do that sometimes, but this hand's different though, because you've got aces with the ace of diamonds. And I keep saying over and over again, it's just really hard for him to have a high naked diamond in his hand because of preflop and because it's a 3-bet pot. So king 10 off, king 10 off, the king of diamonds not there. Jacks, queens with a diamond not there. So when he calls the turn, it's like, but if you bet like 75 or 100, that certainly changes things. What did you do?
Yeah, so I did make the fold.
Did you get a reveal?
And we did not get a reveal instantly, but since I was just visiting, I was chatting up the table right when I was about to leave, like, man, like, and I talked to him, I'm like, but dude, I'm probably never going to see you again. Like, man, what did you have in that hand? He's like, oh, I was bluffing king high, like right away. And I have no reason to see why he would lie about that.
King high. So I'm just trying to think.
I'm honestly, I'm struggling to think of the king highs you could have besides like king queen with like a diamond or something.
Well, I suppose he could have like called with like king jack with the king of diamonds, king queen with the king of diamonds on the flop because you kind of bet small. And a lot of live players will sort of over defend in that spot. And then on the turn, he calls king jack, king queen. Again, though, I mean, that's double flats that hand. That's, it's kind of prying. It's a double flat. Listen, if I had aces, no diamond, I would call for sure. But I don't know. I don't really have an issue with the fold.
Yeah, I feel a lot better with you saying. I've been in between. I've been thinking about this all the time in between if I made the right. And I was just wishing that I went smaller on the turn there because then I would have a super easy call on the river here after the dock. But since I went so big, I'm like, man, like, what's he getting here with,
Another hand could be king 9 off with the king of diamonds. Yeah, king 9 off with the king of diamonds. I just think that the reason why I fold here a lot is because probably the most important part of this is that there isn't going to be a hand that is turned into a bluff here. And what I mean by that is like from that type of player, I'm never going to see this guy bet sevens. Okay, for this. And he's also not going to bet like 10x like this. So when you take those hands out, 10x and like a hand like sevens that's turning into a bluff, and you have the ace of diamonds, you have to really go deep in the well to find a bluff here. Could it be king queen off with the king of diamonds? Could it be king jack, king of diamonds? Maybe. Even if he shows up with that though, it still doesn't mean it's necessarily a bad fold because, given the pot odds, he just might not show up with that, he shows up with it less than 1 out of 4 times, but he just happened to show up with it here. Thank you much for the call, Brett. I appreciate it as always.